Hey everyone, this week is the deep dive into EQ, and this video is to go along with your handout that says EQ translating adjectives into frequencies. There is no one thing more important than understanding frequencies, where things lie in the frequency spectrum, where to go with an equalizer when you've got a problem or when you want to make something better. And so it's worth spending a good bit of time on. And, this is the one tool that you can take with you all through an audio career. Technology will come and go and constantly change, but understanding frequencies and how to EQ things to sound better and make people happy is what will keep you working in the audio business. So let's get started with a recap. You remember we talked about always think of amplitude or volume vertically. Think of frequencies this way, horizontally, with low frequencies over here and high frequencies over here. We talked about the range of hearing from 20 cycles up to 20,000 cycles. That's the range that humans can hear. We talked about the fact that bass, quote unquote, when you turn up a knob that says bass on something, whether it's a mixer or the stereo in your car, there's a good chance that it's actually just boosting 100 hertz or somewhere close to there. And we talked about treble being somewhere around 10,000 hertz. And we talked about mid-range being about 1,000 hertz here in the middle. Remember, it's the center of 20 and 20,000 is not 10,000 when you're talking about frequencies, because they double. So it's exponential. Every octave of music is a double in frequencies. So they get big pretty quick. And we talked about, I think, basically three ranges of, there's 1K in the middle. So there's 1,000 cycles. That's basically the center. My voice right now is probably around 700-800 cycles if I were to look at it on a frequency graph, I'm guessing, right? So we said, hey, bass is in this area, mid-range is in this area, and treble is in this area. But now I want you to really start to think about just, 20,000 frequencies can be a little daunting, right? But if you can understand these 5 frequency ranges that we're going to break that mid-range, that big mid-range band up into 3 subsections, lower mids and upper mids. So that's going to give us basically 5 zones of frequencies, from bass into the lower mid-range, into mid-range, into upper mid-range, and then finally into treble. And I'm going to give you some numbers. These aren't hard and fast. Every engineer might tell you a slightly different number, where there's no magic number where bass suddenly becomes lower mid-range and lower mid-range becomes mid-range and et cetera. But roughly, and I wouldn't ask you to give me a number that I would count wrong, but roughly, and bass, which we're also going to call low frequencies with the abbreviation LF, because that's what you'll see on a lot of equipment, hardware and software. If you see LF, it's probably low frequencies. When you see LMF, that usually means lower mid-range frequencies. MF for mid-range frequencies, and HMF meaning higher mid-range frequencies or high mid-range frequencies, the upper mids. And then HF is for high frequencies. So this is what all those abbreviations mean. And roughly, I really want you to get used to these 5 zones of frequencies. Bass and sub-bass, all the big bottomy stuff, starts at 20 hertz, right, which is the bottom. We can't hear below that. And goes up to, I'm going to say again, roughly 150 cycles. All right, so that's the bass region. And somewhere around there, bass starts to become really lower mid-range, up to about, and again, roughly 500 cycles. And if you refer to your chart here that you should have in front of you, look at the second column from the bottom, and I've got this kind of broken down. Just ignore this. Look at the second column, second row, up, right? So 20 to 150, 50 to 500, and then 500 to about 1,300 or 1.3K. is your kind of pure mid-range. Then we move into the upper mid-range frequencies, which, as you see again on your handout, takes you up to about 3,500 or 3.5 kilohertz. And everything from there up, all the way up to 20, is what we would call high frequencies. And that's a lot of territory. And when you think about, again, how frequencies double every octave, look how, remember, an octave above 20 hertz would be 40 hertz. Another octave would be 80 hertz. And one more octave would be 160 hertz. So there's 3 octaves of music in this 150 cycle area here. When you move to the lower mids, again, if you keep doubling and say 150 is double that is 300, double that is 600, there's 2 octaves of music, but you've got 350 frequencies. So a lot more frequencies than here, and yet only 2 octaves of music. From 500 to 1300 is, again, it's about 2.5 octaves, right? Double 500, you'd be at 1,000. Double that, not even that, I'm sorry, about an octave and a half. And you've got yet, what do we have here? 800 cycles. So the number of frequencies contained in each section is more and more, but the octaves are roughly the same or even less. When you finally get up here to this last band, right, from 3,500 to 20,000 is 16,500 frequencies, right? And yet that's only, if we double 3,500, that's 7,000. Double that, that's 14,000. And double that would be 28. So this is only 2.5 octaves of music in 16,500 frequencies, where here we've got 3 octaves in only 150. So just keep that in mind, all right? But I really want you to sort of just study that chart and let's look at some other things. Here's the description of what you find in that area. So, you know, all the way down from sub-bass that you'd almost more feel than hear, up into the solid bass range where you would hear, and the top row is instruments and sounds you would hear there. A bass drum, aka kick drum, the fundamental of a bass guitar, things like timpani and orchestra, tom-toms. If you're doing audio for video, this is where the rumble of thunder and explosions and, you know, things that will really move a subwoofer, that's all going to be down here in this bass range below 150. When we move into the lower mid-range, this is where you get the body of a lot of instruments, as it says, the fullness of an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, and a bass guitar is all going to be found in here. In the mid-range, this is really the tonal center of everything from speech to all these same instruments. This is where the real chunk of it is. As we move up here, this is where you get, in an orchestra, things like flutes and piccolos, electric guitars, consonants of speech like T and J are found up in this area. And then finally, the last band is where you get the real high-end stuff, things like cymbals, the letter S, real breathy high-end sounds, hiss, that's all going to be found way up here in the treble area. So, and then here's some adjectives. That there's no such thing as a bad frequency. One of the things you have to do as an audio engineer, like I said, is figure out, hey, what's wrong with this, and where do I have to go to fix it? And that's the difference between an audio engineer and everybody else. Everybody knows when something's wrong, and an audio engineer should know, hey, all right, this sounds harsh or strident or nasally, so I need to go look in this area, maybe around 2,000 hertz and with an equalizer, and see if I can get rid of some of this. On the other hand, maybe you're looking for more edge or clarity, something sounds kind of dark, you might want to boost those same frequencies. So there's never just a stock answer of what to turn up or turn down. It's a question of what does this audio need, whether it's speech, whether it's a whole mix, whether it's a track in a mix. So understanding this and understanding where these adjectives that everybody knows, hey, you know, it sounds kind of tinny or it sounds kind of muddy. You know, hey, I need to get rid of some of these frequencies, or I want more of this kind of sound. I need it to sound warmer. You might want to be boosting that area. So take a look at that, and that's helpful to look at maybe when you're listening to music. I've got some Pro Tools demos coming up where I take some of the songs that we used on your listening test and just show you an EQ, and then a really great YouTube video from someone named Graham Cochran who is going to really break down the Pro Tools EQ and explain some things. And I've got some more handouts on hardware, equalizers, the two types, which are really graphic and parametric, how to use them, and how to understand them. And that'll be next. All right.